Brothers and sisters, across the wide lands and the endless seas, the winds are carrying news that has rattled the very bones of those who thought they knew the measure of Africa. The world has been stunned. Their newspapers have run out of words, and their cameras have turned with reluctant awe toward a shoreline they never expected to witness in this light. Rising from the golden sands, kissed by the eternal rhythm of the ocean, stands the world's largest beach hotel. And it is not in Europe, not in the Gulf, not in the Americas. It is here on African soil, built by African hands, designed by African minds, and open to the world as a statement they can no longer ignore. This is not just a building. This is not just a marvel of architecture. This is the rewriting of a story that has been told against us for centuries. For too long, they told us that our beaches were good enough for postcards, but not for the world's finest resorts. For too long, they told us our land could supply the raw beauty, but never the finished glory. They came, they took, they built elsewhere, and they told us to admire from a distance. But today, that distance has vanished. Today, Africa does not look outward for examples. Today, the example is here. Look at the horizon and see it, towering, listening, unapologetically grand. It is a palace by the sea, but more than that, it is a monument to our capability. Its halls are lined with art that tells our story, not the one they wrote in their books, but the one that has lived in our hearts. Its restaurants serve dishes crafted from the harvest of our own farmers, seasoned with spices that have traveled through our kitchens for centuries. Its walls are clothed in the patterns of our weavers, its wood carved by our craftsmen, its gardens landscaped with the flowers of our own soil. Every stone, every beam, every breath of this place speaks in our voice. The world is shocked, not because they lacked hotels, but because they never believed Africa could build one that would stand above them all. They are unsettled because this structure defies their carefully painted image of us. A picture of dependency, of small dreams, of quiet obedience. They are shaken because this is not charity. This is not aid. This is not a gift from foreign hands. This is the fruit of African vision, African skill, African will. They cannot comprehend how, after centuries of trying to keep us in the shadows, we now step into the light with something so undeniable, so visible, that no amount of propaganda can dim it. Make no mistake, this is an economic revolution disguised as a work of beauty. It is a place where thousands of our people now work, earning not crumbs, but a living. They can feed families, educate children, and fuel ambition. From the fishermen who bring the morning's catch to the farmers whose crops are served at every table, to the artists whose creations hang on the walls, to the young professionals managing every detail of its operations. This hotel is a living engine, pumping wealth directly into the hearts of our communities. For decades, the tourism industry has been their domain, their playground. They built empire out of beaches, oceans, and deserts, and we were invited only as the help. Now, the roles are shifting. Now, the world will book their flights to our shores, not just for our landscapes, but for the unparalleled experience we have created. And with each guest that arrives, we show them that Africa is not a backdrop, it is the main stage. And yet, this is about more than visitors and revenue. This is about dignity. How many times have our own people traveled to foreign lands to taste luxury, believing it could not be found here? How many times have our children grown up seeing the best as something that existed only beyond the horizon, no more? This hotel is proof to our own people that we are capable of creating the best, keeping the best, and being the best right here at home. Those who have long controlled the narrative will now scramble to explain this away. They will call it a fluke. They will predict its downfall. They will whisper about debt and instability, hoping to plant seeds of doubt. But deep down, they understand what has happened here. They understand that this is the beginning of a new chapter. They cannot edit. They understand that if we can build this, we can build anything. And they fear what that means for the balance of power. Because this is not just about tourism. It's a signal that Africa will no longer be a market for the dreams of others. We will be the factory, the architect, the owner of our own dreams. If we can master hospitality, we can master manufacturing. If we can lead in design, we can lead in technology. If we can create an icon of beauty and function on this scale, we can redefine every industry we touch. We must guard this achievement fiercely. We must ensure it remains in African hands, that the profits flow to African communities, that the lessons learned here are applied across the continent. We cannot let foreign interests swoop in once the hard work is done, as they have so many times before. This must remain ours, not just as a business, but as a symbol. And let this be the first of many. Let it inspire a wave of building across our coasts, our cities, our mountains, and our deserts. Let it ignite the imagination of every young African who sees it and thinks, if they could do this, so can I. Let it awaken the diaspora, calling them home, not just for visits, but for investment, for creation, for the building of legacies. The world's biggest beach hotel on African soil is not the end of the story. It is the opening line of a new one. A story in which Africa is not defined by what was taken from her, but by what she creates for herself and offers to the world. A story in which the phrase, "Made in Africa," is synonymous with excellence. They will come to our shores with their cameras and their curiosity, and they will leave with a truth they cannot unsee. Africa is rising, and nothing can stop her. The tides that once carried away stolen generations now carry the songs of our triumph. The winds that once brought invaders now bring guests who come in respect. The sands that once bore the footprints of conquerors now bear the foundations of our greatness. We have built more than a hotel. We have built a declaration, and the world will have no choice but to listen. The world has long grown comfortable with its distorted image of Africa, a land of endless resources, but limited ambition, a place of beauty to be admired from afar, yet never trusted to lead in shaping global marvels. They were content to believe that Africa could offer raw landscapes, but not the refined masterpieces that set new standards for the world. This belief was woven into their politics, their economics, and even their casual conversation. Yet, all it took was one bold creation to tear that fabric apart. When the world's largest beach hotel rose from African sands, it didn't just stand as a building, it stood as an undeniable contradiction to centuries of condescension. For decades, they told themselves that Africa could host visitors, but not set the benchmark for luxury. They thought the world's most talked about resorts would always belong to foreign shores, gleaming in Dubai, glittering in Miami, dazzling in the Mediterranean. The idea that Africa could surpass them was so far from their imagination that when it happened, it wasn't just a surprise, it was a shockwave. This was not charity. This was not an imported dream. This was the physical proof of an African vision born from African soil, executed with precision and pride. The structure itself became a statement carved into the horizon. Its towers kissed the skies. Its design blended modern mastery with ancestral artistry, and its affluent river and its affiliated resorts worldwide. Every corner whispered a story they had refused to hear, that Africa is capable of building not only what they can build, but more and better. The shock did not come solely from the size or beauty of the hotel. It came from the source. For too long, the narrative had been that African success was only possible with heavy foreign intervention, with imported expertise, with external financing tied to invisible strings. Yet here was a project conceived, constructed, and completed on African terms. It shook the very foundations of their assumptions. If Africa could lead in this arena, why not in technology? Why not in industry? Why not in global diplomacy? What unsettled them most was that this achievement was public, impossible to hide and impossible to spin. Tourists from every corner of the globe could come and see for themselves, share their experiences, and spread the truth in a way no media blackout could contain. The image of Africa as a dependent, struggling continent was pierced by the undeniable reality of innovation and grandeur, standing proudly on African shores. The world powers fear such moments, because they know symbols are powerful. One hotel may seem like a single project, but in the mind of a young African, it can become a seed. A seed that says, if they could do this, so can I. And when that seed takes root in millions, global expectations crumble. Not because the world suddenly becomes generous, but because Africa proves through action, not words, that she never needed their permission to rise. From the ground up, the creation of the world's largest beach hotel became a living example of how true empowerment begins when the hands that build are the same hands that benefit. Every stage of its development was fueled not by distant corporations or foreign contractors, but by the skill, creativity, and labor of local communities. The fishermen who rose before dawn to bring fresh catches to its kitchens, the farmers who cultivated the produce served to guests, the artisans whose carvings and textiles adorned its walls. Each became a vital thread in a tapestry of progress woven entirely on African soil. This was not the type of project where the wealth drains away into foreign accounts, while locals are left with scraps. Instead, every paycheck, every contract, and every business partnership circled back into the communities that gave the project life. Families could send children to school without fear of unpaid fees. Shops thrived as workers spent their earnings at local markets. Entire neighborhoods saw an improvement in living standards because opportunity was no longer a distant dream. It was right there in their own backyard. The economic impact did not stop at the direct jobs created by the hotel. Around its towering structure grew an ecosystem of entrepreneurship. Small transport businesses flourished, guiding guests to nearby attractions. Local tour operators offered cultural and historical experiences, turning the area into a vibrant hub for sustainable tourism. Farmers found new and steady markets for their produce, while fishermen enjoyed consistent demand that rewarded their hard work fairly. The hotel became more than a building. It became an economic engine that powered thousands of livelihoods. This kind of empowerment was different from the promises often made by foreign-led projects. There was no exploitation masked as investment, no one-sided contracts designed to extract value and leave behind dependency. Here the profits stayed where they were earned. Skills were developed and passed on, creating a stronger workforce, ready to take on even greater challenges in the future. Young people who might have once sought opportunity only in distant lands now saw that prosperity could be built right where they stood. What made this transformation so powerful was its sustainability. When people earn with dignity, they protect and nurture what they've built. This project planted seeds for generational change, where the children of today's workers will grow up with a new standard for what is possible in their homeland. It shifted the mindset from survival to ambition, from being part of the exploited to being owners of their destiny. By keeping the process in African hands, this achievement sent a clear message to the world. True economic progress does not come from aid or charity, but from creating opportunities where the people who contribute are the same people who prosper. It is a living model of what happens when Africa invests in itself, and the results are not just impressive, they are unstoppable. For far too long, the story of Africa was told by voices that did not belong to her. Outsiders wrote the scripts, chose the images, and shaped the headlines, painting a picture that served their interests, while silencing the truth. They showed the poverty but hid the potential, amplified the struggles but buried the triumphs. And because these narratives were repeated across their media, their classrooms, and their politics, even some Africans began to believe them. But with the rise of monumental achievements built entirely on African vision and execution, the script is being ripped from their hands. The creation of the world's largest beach hotel on African shores is not just an economic milestone. It is a declaration of authorship. It says to the world, we would tell our own story now, and the story will not be one of dependence and deficiency, but of mastery and ambition. For generations, they have portrayed African nations as spectators in the global arena, as places where greatness could only arrive, packaged and shipped from foreign lands. This project turns that idea to dust. What is most powerful is that this reclaiming is not happening through speeches alone, but through visible, undeniable proof. A towering masterpiece on the coastline speaks louder than any press release or political statement. It tells every visitor who sets foot on its grounds that Africa is not waiting for permission to shine. It is already radiating light. It forces global audiences to acknowledge that the capacity, talent, and vision they once dismissed have always been here, simply denied the stage. Now the stage is ours, and the performance has begun. Reclaiming the narrative also means redefining what African luxury looks like. Too often the world has measured African achievement by how well it can imitate the West. But this hotel does not mimic, it reimagines. It blends modern innovation with deep cultural roots, creating a space that feels both globally competitive and uniquely African. Guests do not just experience comfort, they experience identity, history, and artistry that no other part of the world can offer. In doing so, it shatters the outdated belief that African products and experiences must be judged against foreign standards to be valuable. The ripple effect of this is immense. When Africans see their own creativity and expertise showcased at the highest level, it rewrites internal narratives too. The youth no longer see themselves only as job seekers, but as architects of possibility. Entrepreneurs no longer dream merely of survival, but of building legacies that will inspire beyond borders. And the diaspora no longer views the homeland only through the lens of ancestral memory, but as a living, breathing center of progress worth investing in. By reclaiming the narrative, Africa reclaims her dignity. And when dignity is restored, it becomes a shield against exploitation and a foundation for unity. This is more than a building. It is a mirror reflecting Africa's true face to the world, and that reflection is one of strength, brilliance, and undeniable sovereignty. Rising from the golden sands, the world's largest beach hotel stands as more than just a feat of architecture. It is a declaration that Africa's destiny will no longer be dictated by outside powers. Every brick, every beam, every detail reflects a continent's ability to imagine, plan, and execute greatness without bowing to foreign control. It is a living rejection of the old dependency model that conditioned generations to believe that progress could only come through aid, loans, or the guidance of outsiders. Here the evidence is undeniable. Africa can build for herself, by herself, and for her own people. Self-reliance is not merely about refusing help. It is about creating systems and structures that are rooted in local strength. This project proved that the skills, materials, and expertise needed to compete on the world stage are not imported. They have always been here. The engineers who drew the plans, the builders who shaped the walls, the artists who breathed life into the interiors, all came from the communities that will benefit from the hotel's success. In a world where so many projects drain resources outward, this one became a closed loop of empowerment, circulating wealth and pride within African borders. What makes this achievement even more powerful is the dignity it restores. For too long, Africa's image in the global imagination has been tied to struggle, dependence, and scarcity. The completion of a project of such magnitude on African terms disrupts that image entirely. It tells the world that Africa is not a place to be pitied. It is a place to be respected. And respect changes everything. When a people know their worth, they refuse to settle for less. They stand taller and negotiate harder and protect their future with greater resolve. This symbol also speaks directly to the younger generation. It shows them that they do not have to leave home to witness or participate in excellence. Opportunities are not just found across oceans. They can be built right here. This changes the dreams of countless young Africans, redirecting ambition toward local innovation instead of foreign escape. And when ambition stays home, it multiplies. It creates businesses, industries, and legacies that strengthen the entire continent. Self-reliance and dignity are intertwined. One cannot truly exist without the other. By standing as proof of what Africa can achieve independently, this hotel does more than draw visitors. It draws a new line in the sand. A line that says the days of waiting for external approval are over. From here on, Africa will define her own value, set her own standards, and meet them with brilliance. This is not just a building, it is a promise that Africa will rise by her own hand, and she will do so with her head held high. The unveiling of the world's largest beach hotel on African soil is more than an isolated triumph. It is a spark that has the power to ignite a sweeping transformation across the continent. It is a living reminder that when a nation dares to dream big and sees that dream through without compromise, it sends ripples far beyond its borders. This is the kind of achievement that redefines what is possible, not just for one country, but for an entire people, spread across many lands and cultures. A renaissance begins when a shift in thought meets bold action. For decades, Africa's narrative has been shaped by what others thought she could or could not do. Now the evidence stands proudly on the coastline, a monumental structure that demands the world take Africa seriously. The sheer scale of the project proves that Africa does not have to follow global trends. It can set them. And once one country shows it can be done, others will follow, not out of competition alone, but out of the deep desire to contribute to a shared continental revival. This kind of progress is contagious. When leaders, entrepreneurs, and communities witness such a monumental accomplishment, it plants the seed of possibility. A young architect in Nairobi begins sketching designs for a groundbreaking eco-resort. A tech innovator in Lagos starts developing platforms to connect African travelers with African destinations. A farmer in Ghana sees an opportunity to supply organic produce to luxury hotels across the continent. Each of these ideas, small or large, feeds into a greater vision, an Africa that builds, owns, and thrives on her own terms. The hotel success also sends a message to the African diaspora. It tells them that the motherland is not frozen in time. It is moving, evolving, and calling for their skills, investments, and creativity. Many who once hesitated to invest in Africa because of instability or underdevelopment will now look again, inspired by proof that world-class projects are not only possible but flourishing. This new wave of diaspora engagement will accelerate growth, bringing fresh perspectives while keeping the soul of African progress rooted in local culture. A renaissance is not only about economics, it is about identity. It is about restoring pride in the continent's ability to innovate, create, and lead. This hotel stands as a symbol of that pride, inviting all Africans to see themselves not as inheritors of a struggling legacy, but as architects of a golden era. When such pride takes root in the hearts of millions, it becomes unstoppable. Schools teach history alongside technology, blending heritage with innovation. Cities are designed with both beauty and sustainability in mind. Culture is preserved, but never at the expense of progress. The first spark has been lit. From this point forward, the question will no longer be whether Africa can rise, but how far and how fast she will soar. The continental renaissance has begun, and this achievement is its opening chapter, a chapter that will inspire generations to write the rest.